Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to North Point of View with Dr. Walter Kemmsies. Doc.
Hey.
How you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. And Doc, Dr. K. There's a lot of titles, but we went back to the future on the last podcast.
Yeah.
If you missed it, you need to catch that one.
That was fun.
So
we used math too, just a few other podcasts ago. The quadratic trend.
yeah, well, I'm a mathlete.
Yeah.
What can I say? The topic today is Megatrends, and hit on a few the last couple of podcasts. We're talking about globalization, technology, ESG. I want to go. Before we dive in, I want to take a sidebar and hit on cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
You know, world markets. We talked about cheap Europe, but I think some of what we're going to talk about in these others was seen literally played out in the last 12 months in crypto. Right. We did a podcast, I don't know, almost a year ago.
Yeah,
crypto?
probably. Yeah.
And you sort of surprised me on that one. I was going right, you went left, and it really opened my eyes to some things. But man, we've seen it just crumble. I mean, it's
EV share prices and cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
It's like these mega trend kind of things just.
Yeah, and so let's take crypto for a minute.
Yeah.
It seemed like hype. To me, it was a little bit of an illiquid, market or product. And I don't know, cryptocurrency, what happened?
Well, there's two approaches to this, okay? We have a need for supply chain visibility. And so they were using the ideas to use blockchain technology to trace a product every time it changes hands. But that, you get it recorded. And that is the same technology that sits behind the cryptocurrency. It's blockchain. And there are lots of books in these things. You go read one, because we're not going to spend 30 minutes going through what blockchain is, et cetera. So what happens is the guys who are putting all of those transactions into the blockchain, you can see where the product is, you know who touched it last, you know who has to have it. And what you can do with that is, instead of having banks doing letters of credit, et cetera, which you need before you put anything on a ship, you could have a cryptocurrency unit there, so that every time the product changes hands, so does the currency. Okay, now you notice I'm using the word currency.
Yeah.
Okay, it is a cryptocurrency, but it is tied to the product. Then we have this nonsense cryptocurrencies. The first thing is they're nonsense in the sense that if they're not used as a means of exchange, they're not a currency. They're just a speculative vehicle, right? Who's using Bitcoin to buy stuff? You have to use partial Bitcoins. And I know some countries are using Bitcoin in their payment systems, but that part isn't clear to me. What I do see is...
So that was the illiquidity.
Yeah.
It wasn't moving.
Yeah, exactly. It was
not
speculation. Really a currency. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if Ponzi scheme or pyramid scheme is actually appropriate, but the way it went up and the way it came back down...
Yeah, there was a lot of hype.
Right.
It's way too much hype. And you called it early. I mean, you just said, I don't know where this is going, but, eventually it's going to come hurtling down. And you're absolutely right. Because I don't know what the fundamentals are that you would tie the value of the currency to.
Well, that was the issue.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's not a currency, it's a crypto speculation thing. Now, there are currencies that are emerging, like in some countries where a lot of mining product is shipped from country A to country B. They have created a cryptocurrency that is tied to the movement of the iron ore and other things between country A and country B. So that is a legitimate, but that one is really only used by a handful of mining companies, shipping companies, and manufacturing companies on the other side.
Currency is a lot different than a market speculation vehicle.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So anyways, like if you look at the world of options, options have 5 risk parameters to them. They talk about the delta, the gamma, the tau, the rho, and so with options you can isolate these risks and you can trade them. And what happened during the 2008 home mortgage crisis is people were buying options on the volatility of the mortgage-backed assets. And so what the hell is that? I mean, you're betting the volatility is going to go up, the volatility is going to go down. To me, that's the same thing as cryptocurrency, as Bitcoin.
What's in the basket? I don't know.
Exactly. So, and then of course, AIG blew up and took out Goldman Sachs, and we had to give the banks $1 billion or $1 trillion, whatever it was. And, because so that's what, when you brought it up last time, that was our concern. Is, there are legitimate cryptocurrencies, but is everything out there that's called a cryptocurrency truly a currency?
Right. And now to tie that back into the other megatrends, you mentioned, the EV, the stocks of the EV. We talked a couple of podcasts ago on the ESG and sort of like, the artificial interference in the market and what that creates, or in another way to look at it, the hype.
Yes.
Right, on some of this. And you used a word a minute ago, temperance or moderation.
Right.
As we look at these sort of megatrends and where we are in the cycle of a megatrend.
Exactly. So we were talking before about back in our days in Wall Street, how we always said, like we did a few podcasts ago, the trend is your friend.
Yeah.
And so if the megatrend is sustainable, and there's easy ways to identify that, it doesn't mean that the stock market or whatever market it is prices it correctly. People start hearing a lot of news, they get excited, they pile into the shares. Well, you see the share prices going too far above the trend. It's when we used to cut and bolt and wait till it went back down. But the one important
market's always either overbought or oversold, right?
Exactly. So, but there's another side of the mistakes that are made. We were talking about this before. How do you value a startup company?
Right.
And so what I learned from the folks at Franklin Templeton, they were my client way back, brilliant people.
Yeah.
And I said some dumb stuff about Amazon. It sounded smart, but it turned out to be really stupid, because they pointed out to me that the way you value these growth startups is on a P to 5-year forward E basis, because you got to look down the road. What could this thing get to in 5 years that would justify the price? But I think what we're seeing is a disconnect from true fundamental analysis. It's
right.
And so what I have learned from you, working with you, side by side in some of the projects, is it takes a hell of a lot longer to get something done in the real world than it does on paper.
Yeah.
I mean,
it takes longer than it takes, and it costs more than it costs. Somehow.
Exactly. I opened the door for you to remind me of that, but that's exactly the case. And so, this is the stuff of which bubbles are made. Years ago, I was asked by the wealth managers at UBS to put together a portfolio of technology stocks that would do well during this technology upcycle. And so I went and grabbed the names of all these companies that had the patent on, for example, on a pen, the little clip that you put on it so you can stick it in your pocket with a protector. Well, the company that had that patent was a monopolist. It's like airplane seatbelts. Right. There's a company that has practically a 100% global market share of seatbelts.
Wow. And
without the seatbelts, you can't fly a plane.
Right.
Regulatorily. I mean, you could, but you might scrape yourself off the ceiling. So that's what I picked. And I sent the portfolio over, and they almost canned my butt because they didn't recognize any name. Like, what is this CMG Inc.? Why don't you have IBM and Intel and Apple and all of this stuff? And I said, because they're overvalued. Those are the ones who are going to collapse first. People are pricing in sales from 20 years in the future into the price today, whereas these companies are being ignored. And their sales are going to do just as well as everybody else's, because without their stuff, you can't make that stuff. I was a supply chain guy way back in the 90s. So anyways, my boss protected me. He gave them the names, and they were happy, and they stopped trying to get me canned. But we tracked my portfolio on Bloomberg, and as the tech sector took a nosedive, my guys just kept steadily increasing in share price. And that's the importance of understanding a megatrend. How do you invest, as you said, with temperance? And where's the real value being added? Those story stocks are, and that's what we've seen a lot of, is a lot of story selling and not very much fundamental selling.
Well, we got locked up in our houses for 2 years, and we were eager to hear anything that we could that was different than the day before, right?
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, Walter, it's been a great session. Great to be with you. Thanks for everything today. Let's catch up soon.
Absolutely.
All right,
Take
man.
care, man.
See
Good
ya.
seeing you again.
All right.